weekend. It is Monday, and we're continuing to have a very interesting time in quarantine. I know over the weekend there were lots of demonstrations and riots and people getting out to warm weather and beaches and one thing and another, some authorized, some not. I know here in California it was very warm and nice, and there were a lot of people out. And our governor has made a list of things that are now approved for people to do, everything from badminton in the backyard to rock climbing and canoeing if you do it by yourself. And I'm going to continue to beat the drum on a couple of things here that I want to talk about. Number one is very clearly we're getting close to easing restrictions in a lot, if not all states, coming up soon. We're in May now. I think May 15th is kind of a target date for a lot of states that aren't already easing restrictions to do so. And we don't want to blow this in the 11th hour, I guess, is the thing I'm saying. I totally understand everybody wanting to get back out there. I want to get back out there. Robin wants to get back out there. My boys want to get back out there. Our grandkids want to get back out there. Everybody wants to. But let's resolve that as we do this, we're going to do it responsibly. Look, this disease is real. There's no question about that. There's all this debate about whether this was handled properly by China. Could this whole thing have been avoided, et cetera? I don't know about that. I don't know a lot about geopolitics, and I don't know what the facts are. I don't know that you can get facts anymore. News is so spun. Depending on what channel you're watching, there's so much political agenda. How the hell do we know what's the truth anymore? But what I do know is that for me, politics are very personal. And I think they are for most people. And when it comes to something that is disease and life-threatening, politics should go to the side and we should focus on science. And what we do know is that this disease is more deadly than influenza. And it is particularly deadly for the elderly and those with underlying conditions. So as we open up the world and go back out there, let's just do it responsibly. If it means that we need to spend some more time with social distancing and maybe wearing a mask and taking extra care to wash our hands and stuff, let's do that. I mean, come on, so what? So we're inconvenienced some more. We can do that, right? What I hate are all of the businesses, particularly the moms and pops, the small businesses that are struggling. And I, for one, when I get back out there, I am going to deal with mom and pop businesses every chance I get. Local businesses, small businesses, moms and pops that need the business. And that doesn't mean that I have anything against big chains. I don't. I'm going to try to patronize everyone, but I'm certainly going to pay attention to the grocery store down on the corner, the gas station down on the corner, the locally owned restaurant down on the corner. Those people need our patronage, and I'm going to pay particular attention to them. And I hope if you're in one of those states where they're starting to ease restrictions, we don't need somebody to tell us to be careful, do we? I mean, doesn't common sense tell us to be respectful of other people? I mean, maybe you're not even concerned about whether you get the virus or not. Maybe you're young and healthy and strong and you think, hey, I'll get it, fight it off, it'll be over with, and I'm good to go. But you need to be careful that there might be people that aren't so young and healthy and strong, and you want to be careful that you don't infect them. So just as we go back out, let's just be careful and respectful. These people that are marching on Capitol buildings and holding up signs and demanding their rights, I totally get their right to do that. listen, that's okay. This is America. We have the right to demonstrate. We have the right to go out there and protest against the government and say that we disagree. I have not been one of those people out there doing that, but I totally respect the right for people to do so. Whether I agree with them or disagree with them doesn't matter. This is America. We have the right to say what we think. We also have a responsibility to be careful and respectful of others. So I just hope wherever you come down on this that you'll be mindful of how your behavior might impact those that might be a bit more vulnerable. And we're now, gosh, 6, 7 weeks into this quarantine, and I'm getting message after message after message after message from people saying, man, Doc, this is getting to me. I'm starting to feel really lonely. I'm starting to feel really isolated. Know that you're not alone, because that's a very natural thing. And there are there is mental emotional fallout from that. There is backlash from that, and it's very real. When you feel lonely and you get depressed and you feel anxious, that's very normal and it's very natural. So use every tool that you've got to fight that off. Okay, use technology. FaceTime your friends. FaceTime your family. Engage every possible way that you can. Become a giver, not a victim. Do everything you can to help others in that regard. And hopefully that will help to fill you up some. I know that it will. I want to talk about today's show, and I want to talk about some questions that I've had come in. Anya wrote a question. She said, I totally lose my motivation for everything. It is holding me back in my daily life. Do you have tips for it? I'm trying to think differently and more positively, but everything is standing still and I am losing my passion. I'm studying psychology and I totally lost my motivation. I get it. I understand that, and I do have some tips for that, and I want to talk to you about that. First, I love that you're putting this into words, that you're actually talking about it, because that's so healthy and so important that you talk about that. And talk about it with other people. One of the things you'll learn the further you get into psychology is one of the worst things you can do is bottle things up, and one of the best things you can do is give it a voice. Talk about it, because when you talk about it, that's cathartic. It releases a lot of pressure and gives you relief. That's what cathartic means. It relieves the pressure. And as you talk about it, you find out that you're not alone. You're not isolated. So please give this a voice and talk about it. And here's something that I want all of us to remember, and why I appreciate your question so much, Anya. We're 40-something days into quarantine, but think about it. It was just a moment ago that none of this was happening. It was just a moment ago that you could get in your car and go to the dog park. It was just a moment ago that you could go to your favorite restaurant. It was just a moment ago that you could go to a study group. It was just a moment ago that you could go to a ball game, college game, high school game, pro game. It was just a moment ago. It seems like a long time, but it was just a moment ago. Think about that. Think about last Christmas, where everyone was together. Last Thanksgiving. Think about Valentine's Day. Maybe you went to dinner, flowers were sent, etc. And life seemed normal and we took it for granted. Maybe this is a wake-up call that we don't take things for granted so much. And if this is weighing on you, yesterday Robin sat down and talked to me and she said, you know what, if this is having such a big impact on all of us, what effect must this be having on the children? She said, maybe you should do a series focused on the children. and how this is affecting them, and how this is causing them to wonder if this world has changed forever, if they're ever going to be happy again, are they ever going to have sleepovers again, are they ever going to get to be on a team again, or sing in choir again, or go to church again? Are they thinking, my whole world has changed, my whole life is over? What are they thinking? She said, you know what, you should do a series about that to talk to parents and children together. And I think she had a really good idea, and I think we're going to do that right here on the internet. We're going to talk about that. We're going to set up some times and talk about that. It was just a moment ago that what we took for granted is now gone, and we can get back to that. We just need to do it a step at a time. And it may not be a success-only journey. We may take a few steps forward and then have to drop back for a few weeks, and then take a few steps forward, drop back for a week, take 5 steps forward, drop back 1. But we'll get there. We'll get there. We always do. 675,000 people were killed in 1918 with the Spanish flu epidemic. We're at like 10% of that. Progress has been made, and progress is being made. Sally Kleintope says, I believe you have to be careful when wearing gloves. I saw a presentation about wearing gloves can cross-contaminate. What do you think? Well, of course, you have to think about gloves like your hands. If something can get on your hands, it can get on your gloves. And so changing gloves frequently is really a good idea. I mean, don't think just because you have gloves that keeps your hands clean, but it doesn't mean your gloves are clean. So you have to wash those gloves or take them off and put on new ones. If one thing we know about this virus is that it does adhere to surfaces, and gloves have surfaces. So yes, you can cross-contaminate with gloves, so you have to change them often, you have to wash them. The main thing is just remember that cleanliness, hygiene is critical in fighting any kind of infectious disease. PJ Potter says, how should someone in their 70s prepare themselves for traveling? They have to get home. Well, yes, you're right. And the sooner you can do that, the better, because it's going to get more and more crowded on the airlines the further we get into being reopened. But if I was in my 70s and had to travel by an airline right now, I would use an N95 mask. I would wear gloves. I would clean my area and my surface when I got on that airplane. I would do everything I can to maintain as sterile an environment as possible. I think it's okay. I think you can do this safely, but I would wear a good mask, and I would wear gloves, and I would keep my area clean and do the things I need to do and get on and get off and go on about my business. I mean, that's all you can do, but it really is all you have to do. This is a respiratory disease. The infectious disease experts that I talk to have told me this is a respiratory illness. That means that respiratory droplets from a person's respiratory tract need to come out of their respiratory tract and get in contact with your mucous membranes and be absorbed by your body. And if you have a mask on and you have gloves so you don't pick it up from a surface and put it on your face or your eyes or your mouth, then you should be okay. But if I was traveling, I would get me an N95 mask and wear it during that time to be very careful. Jeffrey Schultz says, Dr. Phil, all BS aside, what is the likelihood that we are in practice for something more deadly than the coronavirus? Jeffrey, who knows? But if that is true, this is good practice. I mean, you would have to agree with that. We do know a lot more about how to fight off an invisible enemy now than we did before. We know about social distancing. We know about quarantine. We know about having to prepare our hospitals to handle surges. We know a lot more about it than we did before, and everybody has been through, as you say, a dress rehearsal. And tragically, many lives have been lost here. It could have been a lot worse, I think, if we hadn't been so responsive to it. but over 60,000 lives have been lost now in the United States. But that could have been a whole lot worse. We have learned some things, and you use that skill set to move forward. I hope that's not the case, but I doubt that this is the last time we'll ever have to do this. Carla Soleil says, Dr. Phil, how do you and Robin handle being away from your grandchildren? Not very well, because they're absolutely the light of our lives, obviously. And Robin, I always said she was put on this earth to be a mother until she had grandchildren. And then I said she was put on this earth to be a grandmother instead of a mother. But you know what? She's very innovative and creative, and it was very interesting to see the depth and robustness of that relationship when there is a forced separateness. I guess if the relationship had been fragile and shallow, it might have decayed across time. But what I saw, in fact, was it actually be enhanced because those grandchildren want to spend time with their grandma. And so let me tell you, we're sitting around here, and several times during the day, we hear that signal go off on her iPad, and it's London or Avery. And as soon as you hit answer, you just start hearing giggles and laughing. And, what are you doing, Grandma? Look here. Wanting to show this and show that. And London has a drone that he's flying. And Avery has all of these projects that she's doing, and they're puzzling up. And so they've chosen jigsaw puzzles, and they want Grandma doing the same jigsaw puzzle they're doing so they can see where they are and compare progress and all of that type thing. And so we talk to them all the time. And thank God for technology in this day and time, because while you can't touch them, and you can't be there with them, and they can't spend the night like they normally do during the month, we are able to see them on FaceTime and see their sparkling eyes and hear their laughter and talk to them about their day and school and what's going on, and see them playing with their cat and their rabbit and all the things that they enjoy doing. And so we feel like we're part of it even though we're not there. And it's interesting when you look at the research, people that are in physical pain, I mean, pain from organic pain from nerve damage or cancer or some type of disease, even looking at the picture of a loved one causes folks to be able to tolerate pain much better. Just even looking at a picture of a loved one. So you can extrapolate from that how powerful it is to be able to talk to, interact, laugh with, share with, talk with loved ones. And so it's been really, really such a blessing and such a gift to be able to interact with the grandchildren. And so I really hope that you're able to do that. And if it's just phone or whatever, do everything you can to keep that connection together. And I've seen that relationship with our grandkids actually flourish, which really tells me a lot about the depth of that relationship. Let me talk to you about today's show. You know, I told you earlier that we made a decision that we were going to go to non-coronavirus programming for the month of May. And I tell you why. I think there's what's called category fatigue. Category fatigue, where you talk about something so much that you just get numb to it. It's just like, oh my God, talk about something else, would you please? And I think I've done 27 shows and 60-something live appearances having to do with coronavirus. And I'm glad that I've done that. And I'll continue to talk about it some because I'm so convinced that we have to talk about the mental emotional aspects of this disease and of quarantine itself. And I think I'm talking about that more than anybody. So I feel like I'm the voice for that, and I'm talking about it a lot. So I'm glad that I've done that. But we're going to spend the month of May talking about things that we usually talk about. Like, for example, we did a bunch of shows right before shutdown that we had actually saved for May. Some of our best shows of the whole year, exciting shows, fun shows, entertaining shows, instructive shows, educational shows, inspirational shows. And that's what you're going to see in May. Things that you can relate to and use in your family. You know, I talked about the whole idea of Dr. Phil was to talk about the silent epidemics in America, the things that were relatable. Today, unusual show. We've got Kelly, and she's on with her ex-husband, Alan. He's the father of their two children. Well, now they're divorced, but he's moved in with her 76-year-old father. They've been divorced for 5 or 6 years, but he moved in with her dad. Who does that? He's sleeping in her childhood bedroom, in her bunk bed when she was growing up. Now, his name's Alan, and her dad's name is Shade. And 6 years after their marriage ended, and husband has been mooching off of ex-father-in-law for 5 years. He's sleeping in her childhood bedroom in a bunk bed, and ex-father-in-law, Shade, is paying for everything. He's paying for the rent. He's paying for internet. He's paying for all the utilities and food. And what's Alan done? Well, he broke a lazy boy. He's in a recliner so much he broke the damn thing. He spends all day just in that easy chair. He doesn't pay for anything. He plays games on his phone and the computer. And Alan, who's always dreamt of being a musician, says his living situation with Shade is like a bachelor pad. Shade doesn't see it that way. He said, I thought he was going to move in for a week or so. It's been years. And we've got video of Shade, 76-year-old, vacuuming around the recliner with Alan in it. This is insane. It's just crazy. I think you'll find it very interesting. Kelly is furious with this, but it's a good break from pandemic. You get back to the things that happen in real life. So I hope you'll tune in and watch that. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to be back, and Robin is going to be here with me. And I want to tell you why. Tomorrow is an important day. It's a day of national recognition for charities and for giving. And we're going to be talking about When Georgia Smiled. Now, this is Robin's charity. And the reason we're talking about it is tomorrow is Giving Tuesday Now, hashtag Giving Tuesday Now. It's a global day of giving and unity, and it's set to take place tomorrow, Tuesday, May 5th. And this is an emergency response to unprecedented need caused by COVID-19. And When Georgia Smiled is devoted to the fight against domestic violence and sexual assault for women and children. And Robin works really closely with shelters and funding shelters, money for them to use to pay rent, mortgage, utilities, food, all things for the survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault that need to get away from their abusers. We're going to show you a very interesting video tomorrow and let you know kind of what's going on in this battle and how the uptick has occurred during quarantine. And maybe you're caught in that situation. We're going to talk about that some too. So that's tomorrow, and we'll be talking about some other things as well. So that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and Robin will be here with me then. So we'll see you then. Thanks so much.